In this video, I'll give you a brief overview of Charlie Kolar, tight end from Iowa State, who was a prospect in the 2022 NFL Draft. Now, I believe we were undervaluing Charlie Kolar early on in the draft process, particularly between the end of the college season and right around the time the NFL Combine occurred. We were undervaluating him. Now we're at a point where I think his draft stock is rising, and while I still firmly view him as a day 3 selection, I think he's a player who could come in and contribute as a rookie. I have my latest big board at 152nd overall, and he's my tight end 8. So one of the 10 best tight ends in this draft class. And again, firmly a G3 selection, but I believe in my upcoming updated big board, he'll have the opportunity to move up and go even higher. Now, Kolar offers premier size at the tight end position at about 6 foot 6.5 inches. He's about 252 pounds as well, with 34.5-inch arms. He quickly became underrated in this class because he's not as twitchy or flashy as many of the other tight ends in this group. And he's certainly not like one of the modern tight ends who's basically a bigger receiver. He's not that kind of player. He's not going to be what Cole Turner was billed as. I know Cole Turner has not turned into that, but what he was billed as is this bigger receiver turned tight end. Kolar is not going to be that guy. But I still think he's going to be a very impactful player who, again, I think could contribute as a rookie. Kolar finds and sits in space very well, using his frame to box out smaller defenders, and he projects as a capable security blanket at the next level. So if we're talking from an athletic standpoint, and somewhat from a play standpoint, use the general framework of Zach Ertz, a player who is not very twitchy, not super athletic, not very flashy, but just finds space, and then turns around, sits down, provides an open target for his quarterback, always gives him his front of his chest so he can see a target, and just makes life easy on a quarterback. That's essentially what Charlie Kolar will do. He's a player who's very good at finding space, as I mentioned, and just sitting in it. And because Kolar has such a big frame, he's essentially able to almost box guys out, put defenders on his back, and they're never going to get around into the football. It just won't happen. And Kolar has good arm length as well. So it's not like it's going to be a problem for him to reach outside his frame and make catches, or again, just reach out in front of him and make a catch as the defender tries to get around his back. Even linebackers are going to have a problem with that. Now, despite his size, Kolar still struggles with blocking. It's not because of a lack of effort. I'm very glad to see he tries. But unfortunately, he suffers from poor technique and some issues maintaining leverage because he is a larger tight end. Most of these problems should be ironed out within his first couple of years in the NFL. I think he could develop into an average blocker. Right now, again, his issues are kind of all technique-based and also the leverage. He is a larger player. He tends to stand a little bit more upright, which allows guys to get underneath him and essentially drive him back. He's not super stocky in his lower half. He doesn't have a thick lower frame, so he's not going to have a great leg drive per se. But that being said, I think if he learns to just stay a little bit lower and spring a little bit more and maintaining his hands, his footwork, everything like that, then I think he will be a usable blocker. But as of right now, below average blocker for sure. And as I mentioned, he's not a twitchy athlete, and he struggles to create yards after the catch, which is a little surprising. He's not really a rumbler by any sense. Despite his size, he kind of gets cut down a little bit too easily for my liking, which is why, again, I don't view him as a day 2 pick. I view him as a day 3 guy. The 4th-year Iowa State product also struggles to get open at times because he lacks burst off the line of scrimmage and speed going into and coming out of routes. So essentially, he is probably even a worse athlete than Zach Ertz. I mentioned Zach Ertz as a comp earlier. He's a worse athlete than that in the sense that he will not be very quick to shake off guys who are very talented in coverage. If you are a talented coverage linebacker or safety or corner, you're going to be able to predict where Kolar is going because he's not going to surprise you with any moves. And if you can get your hands on him at the line of scrimmage, it's going to be much harder for him to get into his routes. And frankly, he might not even get out of his routes by the time the quarterback is already getting pressured, if you can get into him that early on in the process. However, Kolar has very soft hands. I've seen people mention that hands might be a problem for Kolar. I don't see that at all. I don't understand that complaint because his hands are a pro for me, in my opinion. Because he just has 5 drops on 256, 256 college targets. And he's got a natural size mismatch, which he uses to his advantage. He caught 66.7% of his contested catch opportunities this past season. And as I mentioned, he's got the ability to find open space, which is huge in the NFL because that's kind of the floor you need to be as the tight end to really operate. Maybe that or being a blocking specialist. But Kolar finds space, and he's just one of those players who will have a solid NFL career. And if you're looking to get a guy on day 3, a lot of teams missing their day 3 picks. It happens every year. But Kolar is a guy who has likely a limited ceiling, but a fairly high floor to be an NFL player who can contribute in year 1 and maybe be a decent starter somewhere down the line.